paranormal community. And thank you for partaking here in the Odyssey Files live on our Facebook page and our YouTube page. But you may be hearing us on your most favorite podcast platform or the great Subspace Odyssey Radio, which has no relation to us. Well, the Odyssey part of it, anyway.
The Odyssey part doesn't, but
at least that would be pretty sweet if we were like the second part of that. But we are not. Simple coincidence.
Exactly. Yep.
No relation. I am your host, Michael O'Neill. With me, as always, even though it's a weekend, or
even though we're close to a holiday, I'm going to point that out. I'm pointing that out. So
way to make the sacrifice, Dave.
I did.
Appreciate it.
I did.
Yep. It's my co-host, Mr. David Soldering. Good evening, Dave.
Good evening, Mike. Good evening, paranormal community, universe, all that fun stuff.
Way to really let that drag out.
I did drag that out, didn't I?
Like, sure.
I got that S going. And happy 4th of July and happy Independence Day to everybody. A little early. So I hope everybody has a really fun, safe, 4th of July.
To our American listeners.
Right.
There are a lot
of people. It's the major. Well, that's true because, I got you. Because I know we got a lot of listeners in Russia. And we got a few in Ireland.
As long as we're not banned, we are.
Yeah. Anytime we're banned, our listenership went up like 300 to 500% because they were like, "Oh, it's banned. I'm listening to that." And so they came and started listening. And once they got here, they were like, "Holy crap! This is like the best podcast I've ever heard."
Yeah. No.
Come on, it's up there. I listened to some podcasts. I started listening to podcasts recently. We're up there.
Well, of course.
I'm just saying, we should have a hell of a lot more listenership than we have right now.
We will.
Because I've listened to a few and I've just been like, really? You got like 750,000 listeners and you're reading shit off of your computer monitor and like have no personal inflection in your voice. You're just like, and then the car went down the highway and I'm like, come on.
I'm sure that has everything to do with money.
Oh, it has everything to do with money. Oh, look at that. I can't get close to the camera. Sorry.
That's right.
I'm ghosting out tonight. I don't know why.
Or you will disappear into the background. It's quite all right.
I need to get a green screen. I just don't have the extra money to get a green screen.
Because then you could look as amazing as I do.
Yeah. I will say this. The green screen does make you look better than you do in real life.
That is true.
I'm just saying it does. And so I need to get that too. As soon as I move and I get the extra money, I will invest in a green screen because I actually have the space to put it there.
Yes, it does.
Because right now I do not have the space from where I'm broadcasting from to actually have a green screen behind me and make it it's just not going to work. So logistically and in physical size space.
Well, so we have another great episode.
We do
for you guys. We are going to be talking about America's most haunted highways during the second episode, or second hour, I should say.
Second hour, right?
Second hour. But I do want to say that just to plant the seed for a future episode coming up here, probably in the next 3 or 4 weeks. We are currently in. You could say talks.
Are we in negotiations with someone?
Negotiations to bring on the showrunner for Skinwalker Ranch.
I'm excited about that. We've been talking about that for a long time.
Very excited about that.
Yeah.
It's a show Dave and I both watch avidly.
Love it. Love the show.
It will be our first expedition into actually talking to the people involved directly with the show. And so we're looking forward to that. We're not really in talks. It's just picking a date. But okay. It sounds better.
It sounds way better when we say we're in negotiations with Skinwalker Ranch to set up a date to do an interview. Yeah. We'll just leave it at that. That's what's happening, folks. Don't listen to what Mike just said. We're in negotiations with Skinwalker Ranch to set up an interview.
Yes.
It sounds much better.
Yeah, it makes it sound way more important than we are.
Yeah.
But Dave and I are both very, very much looking forward to that interview. And as soon as we know the exact date, so will you. Well, a little bit later down the road than when we know, you guys will find out.
Right.
So, but we have that to look forward to, along with a bunch of other things that we are working on with some really great guests coming up. So, with that said, a little bit different for stories this time. I don't know exactly when I should play the mailbag because the first story is going to be my own.
Yes, you're right. So, how about you do your story, because that's a personal story, then do the mailbag before we start listener stories.
All right.
And I'm just going to point something out here, like, because there's been a few weird things, and Mike's going to talk about something strange that happened to his house, and I shared something that was kind of weird that happened in my house. And I'm just going to say, like, my phone is sitting here, it's turned off. It has restarted itself, and this has never, ever happened, ever. It has restarted itself twice. And the only reason I'm pointing that out is because out of the corner of my eye, I can see the bright blue screen pop up, because right now it's just black, because I'm not using it. It's so that everything's off.
Are you sure that maybe you just didn't hit the restart button?
I haven't.
Instead of...
My hands are right here, man. I have not touched anything. It's if for me to reach it, I'd have to move like this to reach it. I have not touched it, but it's out of the corner of my vision. The thing has restarted itself 2 times since we've been talking for some reason. So it's a little, I'm not saying it's paranormal. I'm not claiming anything's going on. I'm just saying it's a little abnormal. It's a little strange that my phone is resetting itself. And the battery's fully charged. So it's not like it's low battery and it's freaking out because it's about ready to die. Gotcha.
Yeah. Interesting. The experiences continue.
Yeah.
For Mike
I don't know. Maybe this might be I'm only documenting it in case things get substantially more kind of strange.
I understand.
So we can look back and go, well, look at what was happening, 2 weeks ago.
Maybe because you're moving here in the next couple of weeks to a new place. It's your spirit guides reaching out to you to saying, hey, it's time for a new start.
It is, and I think it is. And I think there's something here anyway that makes me, there's something here at my current location that just makes everything just kind of, I don't know, just doesn't feel clean, I guess is the best way to describe it. It just feels thick all the time. It doesn't feel happy, like fresh air feeling it. Like there's none of that here. It's like a sealed mausoleum, and it has been since I moved from your place and moved here. So
interesting.
Yeah, and it's been that way, and I've been like, whatever, it's not a big deal. But
gotcha.
It's just noting it.
I understand. All right. So I don't really have anything to note previously. I've had no experiences in my house whatsoever. Yeah, I lived here for almost 9 years, so I have a nice foundation to say so. Like I haven't moved in 6 months ago, and now something. No, I lived here almost 9 years now. Nothing has ever happened. I've had the same appliances. Nothing has ever gone wacky. Nothing. Just nothing. Everything has worked perfectly.
Well, your dishwasher took a puke, but that's not your fault. I mean, that's just normal wear and tear on an appliance.
Yeah, that was.
There's nothing paranormal about that. It was just a.
Yeah, I mean, it's a Samsung with too many sensors, and
it has way too many sensors.
And the sensors are. Yeah. I mean, that's what's bothering it now. The first one was obviously a bad intake seal that rusted out and then obviously blew up. But natural explanations for that.
Correct.
You're right. I forgot about the dishwasher kind of conking out, but a couple little repairs and it'll be good as.
Yep.
So, on Monday, I was off work and went and had lunch with a friend of mine, and went to their place for lunch or whatever. Before I left, I put in a load of laundry, put in the washer. Left, and this friend of mine is a potential case. Like there is something in their home, and we've been trying to work out a time for my team to come in and investigate and help her out with this. And so while there, we talked about the case a little bit and set up a time and date to do it while we were in the house. Not saying there's anything to do with it. I'm just, kind of pointing out that maybe it might have something to do with it.
Right.
So I get home and go down and put my laundry in the dryer, start it up, and then just go right next door to the next room, which is my theater room. Watch some TV, relax for a while. Went upstairs, did some things. I'm like, all right, well, my laundry should be done. Went back downstairs. Open up, the dryer's not running. Open up the dryer, my clothes are still damp. And I'm like, well, what the hell? And I look at it, and the knob or whatever that would let me know, where it is in its drying cycle had only moved like, a centimeter. And I'm like, how can that be? Like, it's never done that before. I'm like, whatever. Maybe I'm crazy and only like tap the button so fast that, it may started for like a split second and then stopped and I didn't realize it. So I started it up. It's definitely running and left for another, I don't know, an hour or two or whatever. Went downstairs to get my clothes. It stopped again. Only moved like maybe another little bit. Clothes are still down. Like, I'm shaking my fist now. So I hit start again and I stood there. I'm like, all right, I'm going to see if it'll stop again and how long it's taking and what's going on. And so I literally stood there for like 5 minutes and just listened to the dryer run. And it was running just fine. Put my hand on it. It's warming up, just like it should. I'm like, all right, well, it's running. Went upstairs and went to bed because I had to get up really early the next morning. And get up like 3 a.m. Got to be to work at 4. Go downstairs. My clothes still aren't dry. It had stopped again after I had done so. So I restarted it again. Went upstairs. I'm like, I'm going to get close. I'm like, it's been sitting all night. I might be able to if it's a little damp, whoop-de-doo. Showered, ate breakfast, went downstairs, and it stopped again. I'm like, you mother effer. I'm like, it's never done this before. So I'm like,
I can attest to that as a secondary source. For the time we spent living together, I never ever had an issue with doing laundry.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so I went through some other clothes on. I'm like, I'll deal with this later. If it's conking out, if it's dying, whatever, I'll deal with it when I get home. I get home, go downstairs to deal with the dryer, and it had finished its cycle. Clothes are dry, nothing. It had gone all the way to, where the buzzer comes out. It had started itself after I had left and finished its cycle. I don't know how it can do that without me actually, pushing the button. It's an older dryer. I mean, I've had it since I moved in. It's not like a front door. It's not a Samsung. It doesn't have sensors. It doesn't have safety nodules or whatever you want to call them. It's got nothing.
Right.
And I'm just like, what the? All right, well, whatever. And so I started chalking that up to, okay, well, there's obviously nothing wrong with the dryer itself. Like something literally had to interrupt the electrical to it and then released it. And then it started up again. But if anybody's ever had that issue before and knows a natural explanation for it, I'm all ears. But I find it interesting that that happened right after I had left their house after making the date to come in and investigate. And as well as I do, Dave, that, I mean, even though this is like the worst way of doing so, there are entities out there who will try to dissuade investigators.
100, and I never say 100%. And people who are fans of the show know kind of comically that I will retract my statement and say 99.8%, 97%, whatever. whatever percentage I throw out there. I will tell you for a fact, you are right. That and I will put my stamp on that. That is 100% correct. I have experienced that more times than I care to talk about. And I think you're right on. I think that whatever is at your upcoming investigation, I think it's letting you know that it's there. It's it's a legitimate thing, and you're gonna have to deal with it.
It's fine with me. If all it wants to do is mess with my dryer.
Yeah, but that's not what it's going to do. It's as well as I do. It's going to move forward from there. It's just giving you the.
Well, we shall see. I was telling Dave before the show that I did a load of laundry today, and I had absolutely no issues whatsoever.
Right, which means it's not the dryer going out. How does the dryer start all by itself when you have to push the button? It's a 12-year-old dryer. Doesn't have all the fancy sensors that today's dryers have. Doesn't have, because I even asked him, because I was thinking out loud, and I'm like, well, maybe it has like one of those lint sensors that says, hey, the lint screen is, ready to knit a sweater. You need to clean it, so we don't start the house on fire. Like one of those sensors that's built in there. Because in the place I'm living now, actually, the dryer, and it's not a new dryer either, but it has a really sensitive lint screen thing, where like even you'll pull the whole lint screen out and it's like clean, like 90% clean. But you just have to swipe your fingers across it and put it back, and then it'll run just perfectly fine. But it will stop the damn dryer and be like, oh, you need to clean the lint screen. Okay. So,
yeah, definitely do not have that.
No, right. And we talked about that, and obviously the dryer is too old to have that. So
it was an isolated incident. Obviously, nothing else ever occurred. So that's what I said. It's an idiotic example of what to do. Like if all you were trying to do was annoy me, okay, that mission accomplished.
Yeah.
For a couple hours, it was like, what the F?
Right.
But I mean, nothing since. And
it left. It's not sticking around. There's no reason for it to.
Well, of course, but so yeah,
it showed up. It let you know that it's a viable entity, is what it did. It showed up and it said basically, "You're coming to see me. I'm going to come see you. Right? I'm going to come see you first." This is exactly what happened to you, and that's my take on it. That's what I think happened. It's not aggressive. It's not going to hurt anybody. It's not going to hurt you. It's not going to hurt your client. But it was just letting you know that's its way, and your client will back me up on this. That's its way of interacting. And there's other interactions also. Obviously, we're not going to get into it because the case is still ongoing. But that is one of the interactions that have been experienced, and it came to you because you're going to be there. Mm-hmm. So
bring it on.
Yeah, no, stop wishing for stuff that you know better than that.
Yeah, I do. But here on the show, I can say bring it on.
Right, exactly. On the show, bring it on. In real life, back the F off.
All right. Well, that's my story.
That is your story. It's a good story, too, because I don't know how that thing turned on by itself.
Neither do I. All right. Well, it's time for the mailbag.
Mailbag.
The Odyssey Files is proud to present the mailbag.
God, I love that siren.
I don't.
I love that movie. That is such a good movie.
Don't get me wrong. The movie was decent.
God, the movie. That's one of the best horror movies ever made. If you watch the whole thing from start to finish and understand exactly what's happening, it's got great scare moments. It's got great visual, holy crap, what is happening here moments, when the siren sounds and she's trying to run and figure out what's going on and she's in two different worlds simultaneously. And then the ending is and then you see the ending. And for the first time I saw the movie, I totally did not see the ending of the movie. The second time I watched it, I saw the end of the movie like it was supposed, and I'm like, oh, how did I miss that at the movie theater?
Yeah. Well, this isn't Silent Hill bag, so
no, but it's a great movie.
I understand.
I'm throwing it out there. You love movies. You talk about movies all the time. I'm throwing my 2 cents in for movies.
I understand.
I like that movie, and I like the one I just shared with you the other day with Evil Dead.
Gotcha.
The new Evil Dead. Very good horror movie, if you like horror movies. Very creepy.
Gotcha. All right. Well, number one. Speaking of creepy, I'm just
speaking of things that are somewhat creepy. Yeah.
Things in my apartment seem to increase when I'm angry or sad. My partner and I have lived in an almost 60-year-old apartment for 2.5 years now. It is on the top floor, and we share no walls with neighbors, except the floor. Just kidding. It's a 2-story apartment. Awesome. And was inhabited for years before us. We are not religious, and I am not baptized. Most people in my country are Catholics. I have never believed, but I have had my fair share of experiences that I cannot explain. I have premonitions and a strong intuition that I've come to accept and listen to. I have a connection with my mother in the sense that I dream about things that she's thinking about and vice versa, and she's experienced the same with her mother. If I'm scared or in pain, my mother feels it even though she's far away and has no way of knowing about it. Since the first day we got the keys to the apartment, we noticed stuff. Footsteps, voices, shadows, drawers opening, lights and faucets turning on, clinking beer bottles, etc. It seems we have some sort of mimic as it impersonates my partner's voice and our cats, who seem to be able to see it. Sometimes they are scared, sometimes they are not. Anyway, the point is that my partner says that whenever we argue or I am sad or angry for any reason, the activity gets worse. He says he just braces himself whenever I have a bad day because he knows things will get extra creepy for him. And it's not that the thing targets him, but he's more aware of it because it creeps him out and he's a light sleeper. I'm a woman, by the way, so this makes me think of what I've read about poltergeists, but I'm almost 30. Is this kind of effect of emotional disturbances or increasing unexplained activity discussed in any kind of lore? Why would it be receptive to my emotional state versus my partner's emotions? Does anyone have similar experiences or possible answers? So, I don't particularly know why you had to throw in that thing about your mother, because it does. I really don't think it has anything to do with what is going on. I know a lot of people, and we've talked about this on the show before, attribute religion and faith with the supernatural and the paranormal. Mm-hmm. And whereas they can have some sort of connection to each other kind of indirectly, they are two separate, forgive my terminology, entities. They're two separate things. Mm-hmm. So the fact that you're not baptized, the fact that you don't really believe, has really no bearing on anything. So I mean, I think that's great that you have that connection with your mother and that she had it with hers. That just means obviously you are more intuitive and you have some sort of abilities. Honestly, when I was first reading it, and I got about halfway through, my first instinct was poltergeist as well. I mean, the only thing that throws that off, at least for me, are things like the beer bottles clinking, stuff like that. That's typically not a poltergeist reaction, although it could be residual in nature. It could have a natural explanation. In fact, one of the last investigations my team did at the Wabasha Street Caves, we heard like 3 times during the night what sounded like bottles clinking. Like they're rattling clinking against each other on the shelf or something like that. Come to find out that there's a cooler that sits along the wall, and they put bottles on top of it, and when the engine kicks on or the motor kicks on, yep, it'll rattle it'll rattle the bottles, which causes that. Yep. That thing. The owner of the caves thought it was a ghost at first when she started hearing it, but she noticed that it was the same thing every time. Yeah. So I mean, could you have a bottle of tequila or vodka or something sitting on top of the fridge? and when the motor kicks on or whatever, it rattles them, or they clink against each other. I do think that might have a natural explanation to it, just based on my own experiences. The only other thing that gets to me about it being a poltergeist is the fact of it was there from the beginning. So, I mean, it was either there before you were there, or it followed you. And I don't, Dave, maybe you don't, but I don't think poltergeists just follow you wherever you go. I think it can find you after a while, kind of like a rubber band that's being stretched, and then once it gets the thing, it pulls you forward. But right off the bat, that's interesting. But I do think that you and your abilities do have some sort of catalyst for this. Obviously, when you're angry and you're sad, you put out more energy. You put out, more of yourself out there, which could increase anything. So this might not be a full-fledged poltergeist, but it may be some sort of psychokinetic thing from you that are just kind of interacting with your environment. I don't think that there's any entity there to harm you, unless it is a poltergeist, which might go after your significant other if your anger and stuff enough is aimed towards him. So I guess I would just keep tabs on it, see if it gets better or worse. Maybe try not to get angry so often. And I know that's way easier said than done. We all have our bad days. Right. But I mean, as long as it's not targeting anyone, as long as it's not actually harming anybody, I would think I would just try to relax a little bit more, keep the energy down. It might dissipate after a while, and then you'll be just fine. The only way that I would really seek help is if it starts to attack.
Okay. So I'm taking a different route on this. Okay. I don't think religion, I agree with you in the fact of religion here. I don't know why she felt the need to state that she's not religious and not baptized. I think that has absolutely nothing to do with what's happening here. But I do think, and I'm deviating here a little bit from you, I think that the connection, the mediumship and psychic connection that runs in the females here in this bloodline, to me, screams high ability. So if grandma and mom were psychically linked and they could feel each other's pain, that is off the charts ability. And because mediums that we know, they're not feeling pain and stuff from people from distances. I think that and I don't think it's a poltergeist. Okay. What I think is at play here is I think that she is, and we've run into this in the past. So, and Michael know, we were on the case, we did a thing together. And I think what she is I think she's a really bright, shining light. And I don't think it matters where they're living. It's irrelevant because her light is shining all the time, so bright because of her abilities that the dead see her when they're lost, wandering around in the darkness. They see her and they gravitate towards that light, hoping that they're going to find answers to whatever it is that they're searching for and get out of the darkness into something safe and warm and comfortable. And I think that that's exactly what's happening here. So that's what I think. I don't think it's a poltergeist. As far as not like emotional disturbances and increasing unexplained activities not happening when your partner's upset, I think that just substantiates exactly what I just said. Your partner is probably totally not gifted. at all. I mean, we all have some abilities, right? But if we don't use them and we're in our 30s, unless you really dig into it at that age and try starting baby steps and stuff like that, just live your life. Don't worry about going back and trying to backtrack. And so your partner his emotions, and when he's having a bad day, is not causing activity in the house. But you being a medium and being extremely strong and powerful, and maybe not knowing that, obviously, and you need to explore that deeper. And you're calling in the dead unintentionally. And all the activity that you're experiencing is because you've got this revolving door thing happening. So you're bringing in the dead. They come in, they experience what's going on at the light, and maybe they get some help, and then they leave. And maybe they don't. And maybe they stick around for a week or two or a month or two, whatever. And then maybe they determine that they're not going to get what they need here, but they see another light in the distance. And so it's time to go explore that because they didn't get what they needed here in order to satiate whatever it is that they need at that moment. So they leave. So there's another entity leaving. And then when that entity leaves, the room opens up and somebody comes back in the revolving door. That's what I think is happening here. As far as the noises, the footsteps, the clinking beer bottles, faucets, lights turning on, drawers opening, that is totally, to me, that's totally entities trying to reach out to you and get your attention. Shadows, I mean, to me, that is just something. It's not scary. You're not being touched. If you were being touched or your partner was being touched, you would have said something. I'm waking up with bruises. I got shoved down some stairs. I got grabbed the other day, and my partner's waking up with bruises that look like a handprint on his thigh, or it looks like a handprint on his shoulder or arm or hand, whatever. None of that is happening here. Nothing bad is happening here. Nobody's being touched. Nobody's being negatively affected. Your sleep pattern is not interrupted. So the entities that are here are just expressing themselves, letting you know that they're there. That's what I think is happening here. And I think that it's not necessarily a bad thing, but it can be a confusing thing. And so I'm getting the feeling, for whatever reason, that your grandma's not alive anymore, but your mom is. So I would reach out to you. I would get together with your mom and I would explore this thing deeper internally between the two of you and find out, and then dig deeper into grandma. If she's still alive, for whatever reason, I don't think she is, but if she is, get her involved too. Figure out why you guys are so strong. There's a reason why you're so strong. Share your stories together. Don't be afraid to share your stories, especially between family members. There should be no pause there whatsoever. Tell each other what's happening. Share your stories about all the weird shit happening in your apartment. Your mom, she might have experienced the exact same thing 4 or 5 different times, and your grandma the same thing. And maybe you'll find some peace by sharing and opening up. So,
well, before we move on, we have a question.
Yeah,
from the gallery.
Yeah, the gallery.
Do poltergeists attach to people or places? So, I'm going to try and say this quickly. I don't know if I can. But poltergeists, at least in my definition, there's probably 17,000 different definitions of poltergeists out there, which is so irritating because nobody seems to want to agree on one specific definition. But I'm going to use mine because I think that it fits more like scientifically out there. Poltergeists are created by people. So for the most part, yes, they are attached to the person who is fueling it. Places, not so much. I mean, if somebody who had created a poltergeist enough so it had some sort of consciousness to it, suddenly up and moved, and somebody came in that wasn't feeling it or whatever, it would still be there, but it would dissipate. It would cease to exist because it wouldn't have its fuel.
It follows the individual.
Yeah.
It doesn't haunt the house or the physical location. It's attached to the individual.
Yeah, that created it.
Right. That manifested this entity. Right. Out of their energy.
But
It's a lifeline between the two things. It's a cord, as Tina would say. There's a
right.
cord there between the two entities.
But keep in mind that because the person created it, the person can also get rid of it.
Absolutely.
And that is, whatever emotional turmoil they're going through, because it takes a long time to create an entity, especially one that has its own consciousness to it, which means it's continually being fueled by some sort of ongoing trauma, ongoing emotional turmoil for this person.
Right. Which is why they kind of link them in a generic sense to younger females going through womanhood, transitioning between a child and a woman.
And obviously menopause.
And all of the thoughts and everything, that like their confusion, anger, thought, am I pretty enough? And, social media regretfully beats women down horribly. That's just a fact. So disregard that. Regretfully, women don't. They need to just stop being on social media and worrying about what other people say about them. Just appreciate who you are as a human being.
I think nowadays, though, and obviously I mentioned this just a little bit ago, women going through menopause also.
That can happen too, right?
So, I mean, those are
it's a huge, huge time in their lives. Obviously, things are not going the right way.
So those are two very specific instances, but that doesn't mean that a woman in her 30s, like who wrote this thing, can't develop a poltergeist.
I totally think it's possible that she could. I totally do not think this is a poltergeist case.
I know you don't, but
I totally think this is a revolving door, bright light, shining entity, and the dead just coming, trying to find peace or a way to move on. And that explains perfectly why nothing's happening with your partner's emotions, because your partner doesn't have the abilities that you have. So why would the dead care? They walk in, they look at him and go, hey, how's it going? And then they move to you because you're the one who's pumping out all of this energy and light. Whether you know it or not, that's what's happening.
Nice sound effects.
Well, I'm just saying, I'm trying, in my mind, when I said that, I was thinking of like the Tesla coil. That's what's happening here. It's like you're a walking Tesla coil. You just got all this energy just pouring out of you. Well, of course you're going to attract something. We talk about this stuff all the time.
All right, next.
Yeah, let's move on so we can get to more than one question tonight. Number 2, can spirits or demons know what I'm thinking about them? Okay. I seem to have a lot of intrusive thoughts and finding myself thinking about a lot of things that I do not actually mean to be thinking of. I often think about dead people's spirits the way that I shouldn't, and I'm really worried that they can hear what I'm thinking about them. I do not communicate with any of these spirits in any way. I'm just thinking about them. Do they somehow know? Can they hear my thoughts? I'm sorry if this sounds like a silly question, but I'm really paranoid about it. I'm not doing anything to even try to have contact with these spirits. I'm not practicing any kind of magic, and I do not practice any type of religion. All of the bad, weird thoughts about these spirits are my intrusive thoughts, and I do not mean them. Should I be worried? Okay. I'm going to start with this. Should I be worried? Boy, there's not a lot of information for me to give you a really good, intelligent answer here because you didn't give me any background about yourself and stuff. But should you be worried? I'm going to say no. Because according to what little bit of information you shared with us, there's nothing disruptive going on in your life. You're not physically harmed. You're not mentally harmed. Your sleep pattern's not disrupted. Your life isn't in turmoil. You could throw the word demons out. I think about being in this world that I'm in. I think about things all the time. Angels, demons, the dead. I think about UFOs. I think about interdimensional beings. I think about all kinds of stuff every day. Every day, stuff like that pops into my head, and I stop and I go, okay, well, what about this? What about this? What about this? So I think about that stuff all the time. Am I somehow conjuring a demon or letting something negative, something evil, something dark? Is that an invite to them? No, and no, not in any way, shape, or form. So it's kind of like, and it takes me back to a case that we did years ago, where there was legitimately some shit happening at this house, and the person who was there was interested in the paranormal and had the like first season and second season of Paranormal State, and had like the first season and the first 3 seasons of Taps on DVD at the time. And they were like, I just want this shit out of here. I want to get rid of this because these things are causing all this activity in my house. No, they're not. They're not. DVDs don't cause demons to show up at your house. Okay. You have to invite something into your life. Could those DVDs and could those episodes possibly cause you to think differently? And somehow maybe in a fleeting moment of ignorance, you stop and go, okay, well, what if it isn't real? Or what if it is real? What if it isn't real? Well, I'm going to find out. And then you do something dumb and you open up yourself to the other side or to some gateway, and something comes through, and then your life turns to shit. But that's not what's happening here. So I don't think you have anything to worry about. The only thing that I would ask is, and because you use the term more than once, what do you mean by intrusive thoughts? So I don't understand. I don't really get what that means by the context of your question. So what is an intrusive thought to you? And with that clarification, I could probably give you a more intelligent answer than what I just gave. But I think I don't think there's anything to worry about. And that's really the bottom line here, is they're paranoid about it and they're worried about it. You're not practicing any type of black magic. You're not religious. You're agnostic or you're an atheist, one of the two. Don't worry about it. I don't think there's anything wrong.
I love the fact that this guy seems worried or even embarrassed about these thoughts that are running through his head about spirits and demons. And he's worried about it like, there's some demon in Ohio who's all of a sudden going to look up and be like, oh, Jeffrey, you saucy minx, you thinking about me again? I mean, no, relax.
No, right.
Can the dead hear our thoughts? Yes. But I think it has to be very specific.
I think you need to be intelligently trying to communicate with them.
Well, I mean, like
passing thoughts in your mind are not intelligently trying to communicate with them, is what I guess the bottom line.
Like if I laid in bed and I wanted to send a message to my mother,
right?
She would be able to hear my thoughts
because you're intelligently focusing on that and trying to communicate with her.
Exactly. If I was at an investigation and wanted to, I mean, we've had Chris Fleming talk about it all the time.
Sure.
Sometimes he'll get an answer to a question he hasn't even asked yet.
Sure, absolutely.
But that's because in his head, he is asking them specifically.
Right. Just hasn't verbally stated it yet.
Just
for us to hear.
Yeah. I mean, having, as you called it, intrusive thoughts about random spirits here, no, is not going to, they're not going to blush. No. They're not going to come to you and be like, where did you get that kind of mouth? Who taught you how to think like that? No, you're not. No. You're fine. We all have intrusive thoughts. I don't know. I know what mine are. None of them are really about spirits, though.
No, they're about orbs, like the orb photo I shared with you.
Sometimes orbs are part of it, just not dust orbs.
Right, exactly. Not dust orbs.
Sorry.
which we just shared, which is hilarious, and we'll share it. Let's say next week. We'll throw it up on the screen.
No, we won't.
Oh yeah, we will. That's absolutely.
Oh, that
one of the best photos.
Okay,
the old school one I shared with you a decade ago.
I thought you were talking about the
No, not the one I just shared with you.
Like we're not.
No, we're not going to share that. No.
All right. Anyway.
The other one.
Right. Gotcha. All right.
Yeah.
Well,
we'll share that. We'll share that. Leave it up on the screen for a little bit for you to see. It's absolutely one of the best, hands down, one of the best memes that I've ever seen in my life. And phenomenal.
Well, anyway.
Yeah. Getting back to the question.
I 100%, and I will say 100%, think you're perfectly fine. You need to stop being paranoid, and maybe get a girlfriend. Living girlfriend. And I'm sorry to say,
or a partner,
right?
Depending on your orientation,
right. Boyfriend, girlfriend, / significant other.
Yep.
I this is going to come out rude, so I forgive me. I don't mean it to, but there's no better way of saying it. But when it comes to demons, your intrusive thoughts mean nothing to them.
No.
Unless they are trying to actually are already at your place and trying to possess you, then they might. But yeah, you're not going to attract a spirit. You're just because you had thoughts.
Thoughts are strong. We're not discounting. So I'm just going to say that we're not discounting thoughts, because thought can generate manifest stuff.
Because you thought tulpas last week, which
I think it's bullshit.
It's bullshit. But now all of a sudden you're like, thoughts can manifest.
Well, they do, because I'm thinking going into CE5 that I think that human thought put out there in mass and taking all of that energy and putting that energy together in one fine point and sending that point out I think it potentially has the ability to communicate with other intelligent life. Do I believe in tulpas? No, I do not. I think that's schizophrenic behavior, and I think that it's just imaginary friends, and I think people just have good imaginations, and they're lonely and they need somebody to be in their life, and they're socially inept. And so they create this thing in their mind. I do not think it's any type of being. So sorry. It's just how it is, man.
It's quite all right. All right. Number 3. Why do those who have passed sometimes appear to people not as close to them? I had heard that this was the case. Recently, someone passed in my family and they were seen in a dream by someone they knew, but not by those closest to them. It had all the hallmarks of a visitation type dream, and I do think it was significant. I'd heard for a while over the years that those who have passed do not necessarily reach out to those closest to them, or maybe they cannot. But I never wondered why, because it was not relevant at the time. Now that it is relevant, I do wonder why that is. I suppose I could postulate a bunch of explanations, but I would like to hear from the two of you why you think that is. We have talked about this before, and so I'm just going to regurgitate that because it's my answer. And it's nothing against this question. It's a very good question. And I think
great question. Absolutely.
I think a lot of people have this question because a lot of people experience it. And for me, there's two different answers, maybe one or even both. The first is those closest to them might not be open to the fact that somebody wants to come and visit them. They could be closed-minded. They could think that everything in their life is, everything supernatural in the world is a demon trying to trick them. So if they were to come to them in a dream and be like, yes, I'm dead, but I want to give you this message, because of their religious upbringing or religious beliefs, they're going to think that it's a demon trying to possess them. They're not going to be open to what is being told. And I don't know this for sure. I have gotten some sort of confirmation from spirits over the years about this. But communicating with our side is not as easy as we think it is. They can't just snap their fingers and do whatever we want them to do. And so I think that if they do come in a visitation type dream, they get to do it like once and for a very short period of time. So they need to be very precise into what they say. So if they're going to come to somebody, they're going to want to go to somebody a little bit further away because they're going to, and open to it, because they're going to be able to handle it. You know, if somebody's parent passed away, somebody's sister, brother, you know, whatever, child passed away, and all of a sudden they were to come to them in a dream, there would be tears, there'd be shrieks there. You would have to get through all of that emotional turmoil to try to get to your message, which you might not have the energy to do.
Then you wouldn't even understand it at that point anyway.
And that very much could be the case.
Right.
So,
because you'd be so overwhelmed by all the other emotional shit that was happening prior to that.
So I think that they go to somebody who is a family friend or somebody who would be able to be open to their message and be open to the visitation and be able to still pass along their message. It's nothing to do with the people who are closest to them. It's not that they don't want to touch them. It's not that they don't want to visit them. It's not that they don't want to talk to them. They do, but they only have a certain amount of time and energy to do so. And sometimes the message is more important than just being there. And so, I mean, for anybody that happens to, please do not take it personally. It doesn't mean that the person doesn't love you or that they didn't want to. It's that they had a specific thing they needed to do that they felt only going to this certain person was going to accomplish.
I honestly, I don't have anything to add to that. But other than what I interjected there, I think you're spot on. And I am on the same wavelength as you on this. I don't think it matters who the message is passed to. I wouldn't take that personally. I don't think that that's a personal type of thing to get upset about. My question about what's happening here is, why is it relevant now? Right? It's never been relevant before. It didn't matter. You weren't worried about the answer. You didn't care about why it happened.
Well, I'm
and
sure
now
they lost
all of a sudden they say, now that it's relevant, I do wonder why that is.
They must have lost somebody.
Which I'm going to guess, right? I'm going to guess that you lost somebody that you love that was very close to you. So that would be, it probably wasn't a third cousin, right? I'm saying it's probably your mother, your father, your wife, your husband, your child, somebody in your immediate circle of life that you spend with every single day that passed away. And now you're confused as to why they reached out to Uncle Jimmy in Missouri to pass along a message that he shared with the family, but did not pass it on to you. And I think Mike is spot on with that. Honestly, I think it's because you're probably not open to receiving it, or the message had a limited amount of time to be delivered, and there wasn't going to be enough time if it was delivered to you. You know, it would have been too much grief and emotion and everything else going on, and the message would have never got put forth. Which is perfectly fine, because as long as Uncle Jimmy shares the message, that's what's important. The message is what's important here, not who it got sent to. So you need to put that into perspective, honestly.
Okay, so not to take away from any of what was important here, which was but this is the first time I'm going to be able to play it, and now that I have it set up, I'm going to be playing it all the time. But you'll recognize it.
Michael's right. Michael's right. Michael's right.
Absolutely not. That is the one and only time that you will hear that on the show.
No, it's not.
Because even Ken is going to be like, seriously, stop playing that shit.
Never.
Yeah.
I found it the other day, and I'm like, yeah, it's going on.
No, holy crap.
And when you just when you said that, yeah, Michael's right, I'm like, oh, I need to upload that really quick.
Yeah. Okay. You're welcome. There's your 4th of July gift.
Thank you.
Okay.
That's a gift that's going to be playing all year long.
Can't wait. I'm so excited. My nipples are rock hard.
Do you want to go to break right now or like a minute away? Or do you want to read the next one and then we'll go to
Let's read the next one. I'll read it real quick and then we'll address it after the break. How about that?
All right. Sounds good.
Okay. Number 4, possible curse or coincidence. My sister and I were at Petrified Forest National Park last week and we took about a palm-sized piece of petrified wood. Since then, our favorite movie theater is shut down. We witnessed the aftermath of a bad accident and paranormal things have been happening. I was feeling weird about everything that has happened and decided to look up if there was anything involved with taking wood from the park and found that there is a supposed curse attached with taking a piece of wood out of the park. We are sending back the wood, but are wondering if that will be enough to break the curse. Has anyone else ever heard of this particular curse? When I looked it up, the article said the park has had thousands of pieces of petrified wood mailed back to them from park visitors who have had bad luck after taking them from the park. It also said they can't put the pieces back into the park once they've been taken out, so they just pile the pieces by the entrance. No info on whether the people continued having bad luck or not. Are we permanently screwed by this curse?
The answer in 2 minutes. No, we are going to go to break here, and when we come back, Dave will have the answer for you, and then I will pile on. So we'll see you here in a couple minutes. Note, this is a new intermission with new promos, so enjoy.
Hey, this is Mike Couch from Lost Limbs Foundation. Make sure you check out Mike and Dave on the Odyssey Files because they really need the listeners.
Hello, I'm Al Lagarde from Paper Route Productions, executive producer, Kindred Spirits, Paranormal State, a whole bunch of television shows. And I've worked with a lot of people on paranormal projects and met a lot of people in paranormal radio. And I want to say that Dave and Mike are two people who have a face for radio, in particular, internet radio.
Hey, it's Chris Fleming. More painful than a Tyrannosaurus Rex stepping on your testicle. Listen to Dave and Mike on Odyssey Files.
Hey everybody, it's Chad Lindbergh, and you are listening to the Odyssey Files with David and Michael. And let me tell you, it's almost as painful as a Skype glitch.
This is Andy Lynch, Director of Photography of Kindred Spirits. And when I'm not filming Aiming and Adam at some creepy location, you can find me listening to the Odyssey Files with Dave and Mike. Or doing something else, I don't know.
Hello everyone, this is Ken Vogel. You know, you hear so many great moments during each and every episode of the Odyssey Files with Dave and Mike, but if I had to really choose my favorite moment, it would have to be when the show is over.
And we are back.
Oh, that's some. You dug deep to get some of those.
They're all in a folder.
Yeah, no. I know. I'm just saying, I haven't heard a few of those in a while. So
Yeah. Well, I mean, I couldn't reuse the old ones. So
no, right.
Well, the ones that I have been, I should say.
All right. So let's get into this curse thing, right?
Yes.
All right. So this got me thinking, right? Curses always do. Like I don't know where I'm at with curses. I'm kind of on the fence. And I don't know that I believe. I don't know that I don't believe. I'm usually I'm not a fence person, but on curses, I'm on the fence. But I will say this. So I did some research, dug deep into this one, only because it made me stop and think for a minute, which I like. I like questions that do that. And hopefully our show does that. And I always say that, right? If we give you just a little tiny bit that makes you pause for a moment and go, what the hell was that? Or what are they talking about? Hold on a second. I had heard of something like that. I witnessed something. I experienced something like that. And you actually take a moment out of your life while you're listening to go look up some more information. We've accomplished our goal. And that's my personal goal here. Okay, so this is what I found, and I'm just going to do a synopsis real quick. I'm not going to read the whole thing. So this is from the Petrified Forest National Monument website. Okay. In fact, it says it here, and I'm reading from the site. In fact, there is a room dedicated to these hundreds of cursed thieves in the Rainbow Forest Museum at Petrified Forest National Park. From divorces to being jailed, medical conditions to car problems, unemployment to generally terrible lives, and even death, the Petrified Forest National Park has received bucket loads of confessions, tales of tragedy, and returned petrified wood from those who have lived to regret taking it. Like the curse of the Hope Diamond or the allegedly ruined lives of those who have tampered with Egyptian pharaohs, bad luck comes to those who possess stolen petrified wood from the park, prompting thousands to send it back. Now, that comes right from the website of the national park, which is interesting. So that's just, and so I'm going to say this, okay? You took a piece of petrified wood from the park. Petrified wood is incredibly cool. If you don't know what it is, educate yourself. Seriously. Petrified wood is absolutely amazing. It's basically a tree that turned into a rock through mineralization. And it's incredibly cool. Like petrified wood is absolutely incredibly cool, I think. So is it okay that you took the rock? Okay, I'm just going to give you my personal opinion here. Is it okay that you took the rock? No. And I'm going to tell you why. Because if every single person that went to a national monument took something from the national monument, then in a couple of decades, there wouldn't be anything left at the national monument for other people to come experience and appreciate. So stop taking shit from national monuments. And I say that, and I'm serious when I say that, but there are alternatives, right? So if you wanted a piece of petrified wood, where this location is, okay, in Arizona, where this location is, there is tons of private land that surrounds this, and there is tons of like little treasure shops that you can stop at after you visit the park, and you can spend $10, $5 on a piece of petrified rock. You know, if you want a really beautiful piece that has great character, maybe it'll cost you 40 or 50 bucks. But if that piece speaks to you and you're going to put it someplace prominent in your house, like some people put gemstones out or crystals or like large crystals, like I'm thinking like geodes. And, you know, I've always said that, like the purple amethyst, right? Like I've showed you in the past, like, man, if I got a hold of one of those, I would prominently display that in my house just because, number one, it's just absolutely stunning. And number two, it has an energy to it. And it's an energy that I would welcome into my space and into my house. And I think it's very cool. Same thing with petrified wood. Does it have energy? It probably does. Am I putting it there because of the energy? No, I'm putting it there because of its physical and visual beauty. So don't steal from national parks. Spend 20 bucks, spend 40, 50 bucks. Buy yourself a beautiful piece of petrified wood. Talk about the phenomenal experiences you had. Everybody has a camera with a good or phone, I'm sorry, with a good camera on it. Take a bunch of pictures while you're there. You know, things that you appreciate, things that you see that catch your eye. Is there a curse? Man, I don't know. If you read, when I went to the website for the thing, they said something like 10,000 letters in a binder. and this is also important. If you remove a piece of petrified wood from the forest, from the 93,000 and some acres that is considered to be in the forest area, you can't put it back. The rangers can't put it back. So don't send it back, because they do exactly what it says in this question. They put it in a pile at the entrance to the gates. And the reason they do that is because the geological and the scientific community that studies this location doesn't want things disturbed because it screws up their timeline. And so if something is removed, nobody knows exactly where to put it back at, and they're not going to screw with the timeline. And that's what it says on the website. That's a legitimate answer as to why there's a huge piles of rocks, huge piles of petrified wood from people that send it back. They can't put it back. It's not possible. That they're restricted from doing that. The park rangers cannot do that. So they basically just pile the pieces by the entranceway. Use that as a foreshadowing of a warning. I mean, if I pulled into the I've been there before. I haven't really visited it like I would like to. Maybe someday I will. But if I pulled in and I saw a gigantic pile of rocks, the first thing that would come to my mind, and it was at the entrance, first thing to come to my mind would be like, that's all the shit that people returned that they stole from the park. That's exactly what I would think it was. And that's exactly what it is. So don't steal from the park. And I don't think there's a curse. I think that you just feel guilt. I think a majority of it's just guilt from taking it. I don't really think it's cursed.
Brett, I agree with you. I think people are looking for an excuse. I mean, people are looking for something to blame on their, misfortune or whatever. Businesses are closing down left and right, nowadays. So, I mean, a movie theater going out of business, not unheard of. No. You seen the tail end of an accident. We all see the tail end of every accident.
Well, if you're on the road a lot, certainly your chances of seeing something like that are highly increased. Yes,
exactly. We call it gawker traffic. We have a term for people who see the tail end of accidents.
Right. Rubberneckers.
Sure.
That's what they call them, gawkers, rubberneckers, because their necks are completely turned around as they're like, oh, look at that. A cop pulled a guy over for speeding. We better all stop in the middle of the highway and see watch the guy write the ticket.
Yeah, either that or they have to slam on their brakes, because if they see them going 5 miles over, they're going to leave the guy they're currently pulling over to pull them over.
Drive through the median, and then pull you over. Right.
But either way, I don't think that curses I don't think generalized curses exist. I think if somebody's practicing black magic and intentionally is trying to mess with your life, I think that could probably be the case. I don't believe in 93,000 acres being cursed that anybody who does anything to it is going to have bad luck. I think people do that to themselves.
Yeah.
And I think that people take what would normally be, if the theater shut down and they saw the tail end of the accident, but they did not take anything from the park, what would they have blamed that on?
Right.
I mean, they probably wouldn't have blamed that on anything. They've been like, oh, that sucks. But because they did something, as you put, feel guilty about.
Right.
They attributed it to that piece of what they did. And, now they're sending it back. If I agree with you, do not take anything from anywhere. No. Because everything has its place in the universe and in the energy, in the Force. Little Star Wars action there. But especially, stuff like that. And if for whatever reason you think something is really, really cool and you really want to take it home, as you put it, Dave, centralize it, in their house, because it's just so amazing. Mm-hmm. You absolutely love it and you will love it. Ask permission.
Right.
Just because.
Worst case scenario, take a great picture of it and spend $20 getting a professional print, 16 by 20 print, and frame it. Right. It's not the actual rock, but it brings back the same emotional feelings that you had when you saw it while you were there at the location.
Right. But, each of these forests, they have what, we've talked about many times, elementals, protectors of the forest.
Sure.
And
Native Americans in Arizona, for sure. That's all Native American land. If
you show them the respect and you say, look, I really love this piece of wood. I really would love to really showcase it in my home. Do I have your permission to take it? And you will get an answer. I mean, you will feel whether it has been approved or not. And if you feel like that has been approved, then yes, you can take it. if you feel like no, but if a heaviness kind of sorts over, like
Sure.
don't you do it, then don't do it.
Right.
But you have to show respect, and you wouldn't go to a friend's house and steal their centerpiece off the coffee table just because you
because you thought it was really cool and you thought it would look good in your house, right?
Exactly. So I mean, yes, I know that that's not the same thing, but it kind of is.
It kind of is, actually.
The forest does not belong to you,
right? It's still stealing,
and it does not belong to us. I mean, yeah, it's owned by the government, but I assure you, they are not the owners of it.
No, it's still stealing. The bottom line is you're still stealing something from a national monument. And now the next person who comes isn't going to see it because you took it. To me, that's the bottom line, right? You're taking away a future, somebody's enjoyment of exactly what made you stop and pause. You have now destroyed that for somebody behind you coming into the same environment, because it doesn't exist anymore because you decided that it was more important for you to personally own it. That's not the right mentality going into places like that.
Correct.
So,
all right, moving along to our.
Should we hit the topic and just save the rest of them? I
think
really like question number 6, so we're definitely doing that next week. And I really think number 7's really interesting also. But it's 8:13, so either that or we stick on stories tonight and hit haunted highways next week. But we got a ton of information about highways up. So,
yep. Well, people are going to be on the road this weekend traveling. So
yep.
I think it's only fair that
we hit highways.
Yeah, they might die.
There you go. And so we're moving to highways to save your life. You're welcome.
Actually, I saw a great meme that said that there are so many people out there who are oblivious to the fact that this is the last weekend that they'll have 10 fingers. It's so true. All right. Anyway, where should we start? There's so many of them.
God, I don't know. I got to close a few windows here. Don't mind me here clicking because I had a bunch of windows open to really address some of the future questions. Like one of them had to do with a religious passage that I had done a bunch of research on. So I got those windows open. And then one of them had to do with a really unique kind of shadow person question. And so I had a bunch of stuff open on that. So I'm just trying to close out here. Hold on.
Gotcha. Well, let's start.
You start wherever you want and I'll follow.
I think let's start in the Northeast because we were talking about how there's a lot of stuff, weird stuff in the Northeast.
There is a lot of weird stuff in the Northeast.
And not only that, but it's not only like spirits or whatever, or the haunted pickup truck that comes up on your ass and flashes their lights. But I mean, like there's cryptids involved that I've only kind of in a passing sense and in like a nonchalant type, I've heard of Pigman. Like normal, I threw him off. I don't.
It's kind of like Lizard Man and all that other crap. I don't know. I agree with you. If I saw a kid running around with a pig's head on and come running at me, I'd be like, "What are you doing? Get the hell away from me!"
And I mean, honestly, that could have happened because, but then again, the legend of the Pigman, which is kind of centered around Northfield and Moortown, Vermont, in a place called the Devil's Wash Bowl, which I love that name. I don't know why they call it that, but I love it. But like the first instance of seeing, this Pigman, which is, it has like the face of a pig and is like covered in like white hair, stands about 5'6", 5'8", something like that, was first claimed in like 1978. So, I mean, like, even though claims are still coming in to this day, it goes way back to the 70s. With that, and it wasn't just seen by like one person. I mean, the first sighting was a farmer who heard something scrounging around in his garbage cans, But then, like shortly after that, a group of students at a high school dance were hanging out in a sand pit that was like behind the school, and this like naked pig man thing like walked up to them, saw him, and like they both like turned and booked it. and but I mean, if you go to the Devil's Wash Bowl, you may still to this day have an encounter with the pig man.
I'm going to chime in just real quick. If you go to the Devil's Wash Bowl, you're going to have more than an experience with the pigman.
Like what, Dave?
Well, the Devil's Wash Bowl was named because it's a huge satanic area. It's a huge satanic following location. And if you go there, it's a very... So I have seen... I don't personally know people that have gone there. I'm sure I probably do. But we haven't necessarily addressed the fact that they've gone there. But that location is marked like very... So I'm not going to... I'm trying not to promote like worshiping the devil here is not my goal. But this location in particular has got a lot of sigils and a lot of sacrifices that have happened, blood sacrifices, and a lot of other really, really negative things that have happened. And it's an open field surrounded by woods, and there's a road off to the right. And you can actually you can drive down this dirt road and actually pull off to this location. And actually go to like the middle here, and it's like what was the name of that? Isn't like Harachu Forest or something like that in Europe, or Hibachi Forest or whatever, where there's like that open spot where nothing grows. That's kind of like what this location is. Like nothing's growing there, and I don't think it's because of human traffic beating it down. I think it's because of the energy surrounding it. And I have seen videos and I've read stuff with photographs, documenting what people have witnessed and experienced themselves being there. And like there are trees that are marked, and they're all done very specifically. So I honestly think that this is one of those locations on the planet Earth where if you go there with the wrong intention, would be what I would say, but the right intention for some people, for some groups of people, that you actually could probably do some conjuring. Like you actually probably could weaken the veil to the other side if you did it, if you use the right way of doing stuff, which we're not going to get into here because I'm not promoting it. But if you did that, I think that you have a legitimate chance of experiencing and conjuring a demon. And I think that that's happened a lot there. I think that whole location is just really negative. And I think this pig thing might be a byproduct of that. It might just be a manifestation of something that was conjured there. I don't know. But that location, I've done a lot of research in the past on the location. I don't like that location. Like I would go there, but I would be on like full-fledged white light with my cross, with my blessed cross on. Like I would be on high alert if I went there, expecting to run into something that I don't want to run into. Is what it makes me feel. And I can honestly say that does not happen very often for me.
The next place that we're going to go to is in New Jersey. A weird state.
Is it going to be Mama Leeds?
What?
Mama Leeds?
No, I don't know what that is.
You don't know who Mama Leeds is?
I don't think so.
Oh. It's the mom who gave birth to the Jersey Devil when she cursed her 10th child.
Well, maybe she should stop effing. She wouldn't have had 10 kids.
I agree 100% with you, but that is the backstory of going into the Pine Barrens and Mama Leeds.
Gotcha.
Cursing her 10th kid. The number one kind of paranormal thing coming out of there. But there is an interesting stretch of road. So sorry. It had to.
That's quite all right.
Go ahead.
No, but you and I were talking earlier before the show about Clinton Road.
Yeah, Clinton Road. Absolutely.
Which is, in West Milford, New Jersey. And it's interesting that they put all of these together, but it says here the subject of local folklore that includes alleged sightings of ghosts, strange creatures, and gatherings of witches, Satanists, and the Ku Klux Klan.
Mm-hmm. It's a weird mix, isn't it?
Yeah, it's one of those like, out of these four, which one do you think doesn't belong?
Right. I think that's a weird, and I think Clinton Road is really interesting, and I'm glad we're talking about it, because I think that's a weird ass mix of energy there.
Yeah.
Like, why is the Klan there? Is it just because it's a desolate? Is it just because it's just not like it's just a really strict, because from what it sounds like, and I've never been there, but what it sounds like, it's just a really desolate stretch, right? Like a 10-mile, is it 10 miles or whatever, or I don't remember how far it was. I saw it in one of the things I was looking at. I think it's like a 10-mile stretch of road. So
10 miles. Yep. Roughly.
Is it
10
10?
miles.
Okay. That's what I thought. So it's 10 miles. It's kind of just south of like the New York, state of New York border in like northern New Jersey, from what I remember looking at on the map. So
you are correct.
Okay. So why is this place attracting so many kind of odd groups, right? I mean, like, why would the Klan be there? Like, I read a great site, like one of the stories that I found, there's a great personal experience where there was a group of like high school kids that were cruising around, and they had, and I guess there's a lot of partying that goes on there. And of course, if there's not a lot of traffic and it's dark and it's the woods and the cops don't go there, it's like a makeout spot, it's a makeout spot. It's a party spot. You stop with your friends, you have a couple beers, smoke a joint, whatever. You move on with your day. Okay, whatever. As long as you're not doing something like really destructive or asinine, or that's going to threaten some other human being. Who cares, right? Who cares? Go have fun. Be a kid. But one of the things that I read was there was a group of teenagers that were leaving, and they were stopped by a Klan member that was standing in the middle of the road with a burning cross, who forced them to stop, and then literally was like, open up the van and check to make sure that everybody in the vehicle was Caucasian. Now that's scary. It didn't have a date on it, so I don't know if that was something that was recent. I don't know if that was something that happened in the 50s or 40s or 30s, whatever. But the whole point of that is that stretch of road is carrying a lot of emotional energy, which could lead to paranormal occurrences, right? Paranormal things happening.
Very correct.
And isn't this the same stretch of road that we were talking about the boy, right? With the quarter?
Well, yeah. I mean,
okay, you do yours, and then I'll do my. You do your version, I'll do my version, and we'll see.
You do you, Dave.
Yeah. I'm just saying, I didn't see the one that you saw, but the one I saw is similar in theory to what you saw, but not the same story.
Right. So, which means to me, it's not a true story.
I don't think it's a true story either. I think it's just folklore, but we'll mention it because it's associated with the road.
Exactly. So there's a bridge. There's always a bridge.
Always a bridge.
And apparently, if you throw a penny into the water, within a minute, it will be thrown back at you by the spirit of a boy who had drowned while swimming in the reservoir. And yeah, so if in some tellings an apparition is seen, in others the ghost pushes the teller into the water if he or she looks over the side of the bridge in order to save him. So
that would be me. I would be shoved. Then I guess I'd be shoved in the water.
That's a really strong spirit.
I'm just right. Exactly. I'm just saying, if I witnessed what appeared to me to be a child entity that was crappie flopping around in the river or the pond or whatever, I would be parental instinct would take over, and I would be subconsciously, I would move forward and try and help that child. I wouldn't even think about it. It would just be a parental thing would take over, and just woof, I would try to make sure that that child didn't pass away, that it was okay.
But he's already dead.
Yeah, which is interesting, right? So why would he be a dick about it?
I don't know.
Right? I mean, honestly, if we were
maybe,
laughing because a lot of the shit we found we had to throw out. Like, we were going to bullshit stamp, right? Like, I'm like, we need the big stamp, man. You know, there's a lot of folklore going on, and I get it. Folklore is interesting and it's exciting, and you can talk about it, tell stories about it. But I mean, if the kid passed away, I think, you know, all stories begin with a bit of truth, right? We've heard that hundreds of times. So there might have been a child who did pass away on the road.
Well, there was May 14th, 1983. The body of a Daniel Deppner was found on Clinton Road. He had been wrapped inside a garbage bag.
Was that a kid?
It doesn't say his age.
His age, okay.
But they did find who was charged and convicted of the murder. But yeah, they don't have the age. But it was found riding down Clinton Road in a wooded area of West Milford. He spotted the corpse being eaten by a turkey vulture. So that's
kind of indicated
gross
to them that something was not right.
Probably.
So I would think, okay, so here's the thing I heard, and in the research that I did not hear the drowning story in the reservoir, but on the same page as this child passing away, that there was a kid walking down the side of the road, and it's a 2-lane blacktop, and saw something shiny that caught his eye in the road, went out into the road to go get it, and it turned out to be a quarter. And as he was bending down, picking up the quarter, he stood up, and when he stood up, there's a car that hit him and killed him at that spot. And I guess, of course, it was near a bridge, because there always has to be a bridge involved. And if you throw a quarter over the bridge, supposedly it down into the river, supposedly the kid will throw the quarter back up onto the road.
So you will die when you pick it up.
So let me ask you this. If we went there, right? You and I, we road trip, just two of us. We go there, and we're kind of obviously both going to be not making fun of it, but skeptical, to say the least, right? That this is true. And we go there, and we go to the spot, and we throw a quarter in the road, and all of a sudden the quarter completely disappears. It apports to somewhere else. And then all of a sudden, over the edge of the bridge that we're standing by, a quarter comes flying out of the air and lands in the middle of the road coming from the river. Would you pick that quarter up?
Well,
in that scenario, you don't get to put anything else into the scenario. It's just you and I just messing around, going there to see if it's real, and all of a sudden something like that legitimately happens. Would you pick the quarter up?
Well, I think you mistold what we would do, because the whole legend is you have to throw the quarter into the river.
Right.
Well, you said we put it down on the road and it disappears. That's not part of the legend.
Okay. Right.
So if we threw a quarter into the river and we stood there for, 5-10 minutes, whatever, and all of a sudden the quarter.
Let's not even say 10 minutes, because I'm not going to wait 10 minutes. Let's just say 30 seconds. We're standing there talking. We throw a quarter into the river. 30 seconds later, a quarter comes flying out of the river and lands right in the middle of the road.
I would tell you to.
Would you walk over and pick it up?
No, I would tell you to go do it.
Yeah, I'm not going to go do it. I got a bad back.
Take your time.
So you wouldn't go pick it up?
Probably not.
Okay.
I mean,
I don't know that I would either, to be honest with you. I'm curious, like, what your thought on that is.
I'm
not really sure that I don't need 25 cents that bad.
I would mark it before I go, before we throw it in. Like I'd put a permanent marker line across it and take photos of it. And then when I toss it, now if it's the exact same quarter, then no, I would not pick that up. But honestly, I think just a quarter flying through the air in general and landing on the road by us would probably be like, well, that's not creepy at all.
No, that'd be creepy.
I know I was being sarcastic.
Yeah, I know you're being facetious a little sarcasm. I get it. But yeah, I agree with you. I think again, right, that's kind of trying to debunk, is it really happening or is it some story, that manifested out of just...
I am 98% sure it is just a story. But I mean, like this one road, this 10 mile in the middle of nowhere,
there's a lot of weird stories.
New Jersey. Man. So we have the Ghost Boy Bridge, which we just talked about.
Yeah. Yep.
Apparently there is a ghost Camaro.
Yep.
Driven by the girl who's supposed to die.
The girl who died driving it. Yep.
Right. We have a Druidic temple, which is just south of the road where they did their rituals or whatever.
Right. Yep.
We have strange creatures like a hellhound, aka Wolfie. We're very, very good at naming things. Wolfie, which
one of my fraternity brothers,
which is apparently an experimental albino wolf dog.
Yeah, the whole albino thing is like whatever.
And then we have the ghost truck.
Which the ghost truck? Now there's that is interesting. Do you have anything on it before I jump into mine?
Oh no, I was just setting you up to do it.
Okay, perfect. That's what I was hoping. So during my research, I find a writer that came from Los Angeles to New Jersey for a month. And her entire goal to document what was happening here. She's not a paranormal investigator, just a journalist, and was basically sent on assignment to just go there for a while and experience it. It was not meant to be a month, but it turned out to be a month. So she went up and down, listened to all the claims, stopped at all the little diners along the way, stopped at people's houses that are on Clinton Road, which are very rare. There's not a lot of houses on Clinton Road. I guess it's pretty desolate once you get into it, like off of the actual corners of like where it starts and where it stops. There's a little bit of population, but when you get into that 10-mile stretch, there's nothing there. But there is an old cannonball factory there. And then there's also an old castle. So she goes in, checks the place out, trying to find the boy, throwing the quarter in the river, trying to do this, trying to do that, can't find anything. Driving down the stretch of road during the 30 days that she was there, on numerous occasions, according to what I read, if you read the whole entire thing that she wrote, I kind of lean towards that she had some sort of weird experience. She had a black pickup truck fly up basically out of nowhere. She's driving at night, driving through the woods. It's all wooded, thick, heavy cover on both sides. She's driving, nothing's behind her, nothing's in front of her, nothing's to the side of her, and almost instantaneously there's a vehicle behind her with its bright lights on, running right up behind her like it's going to hit her, and basically tailgating her. So she freaks out the first time she saw it. She pulls over to the side of the road to like let the vehicle pass safely, and she's a little worried. She's by herself. I don't blame her. Vehicle goes by, except for the fact it didn't go by. When she looked at it, she was waiting for it to go by. Nothing ever passed her. She looks in the rearview mirror. There's no more lights. First time it happened. So processing that, it's kind of a weird experience. I actually know somebody personally who had an experience very similar to that in the Chicagoland area, outside of the Chicagoland area, outside of the city, on a somewhat deserted stretch of road that had a very similar experience. A vehicle right behind him, honking the horn, bright lights, flashing them on and off, flashing them on and off. She's by herself. She's like, man, I'm in trouble. She's got her cell phone. She's dialing 911. She pulls over to the side of the road, waiting for this car to come racing by her or to stop behind her and something bad to happen. And nothing's there. As soon as she pulls over, nothing was there. And I know her personally. And I'm like, well, that's a really strange occurrence. And it really freaked her out. So this kind of falls into that same category. So you've got this stretch of road that already has all this history behind it. You've got this vehicle, this black pickup truck that, chases you down and gets behind you and tries to make you wreck or make you freak out or whatever. It happened to her 3 times in a month's time frame where she was on the highway and the same exact vehicle showed up behind her. And then when she pulled over to let it pass, it never passed because it was never there.
I wonder what would happen if, and especially on like the third time, you're like, here we go again. If you
scared.
If you just slammed on your brakes.
I don't know. It's a good question. I mean, what is the manifestation that is causing that to happen? I would be extremely interested to know, was it within a certain stretch of road of that 10 miles? Right? Is it always at mile marker 61, let's say, right? From mile marker 61 to mile marker 63, is it always happening in that stretch of road? Or is it just arbitrarily happening over the 10 miles? Because if it's happening in that little tiny stretch of road, then my background and my mind would say something happened in that stretch of road that is causing this residual manifestation of this truck, whether it intentionally is trying to hurt you and somewhere in the past did hurt somebody, causing him to wreck or ramming into him or whatever and killed somebody, or were they fleeing from something else? And is it in that one particular spot, in that one particular 2 to 3/10 of a mile where it's manifesting itself, which brings up kind of the whole entire idea of this topic was watching Beyond Skinwalker Ranch at the Miller Ranch in Southern Colorado, where they've got the stretch of road going with the bridge over the Purgatory River, right? Since like 1958, there's been 30 major accidents on this stretch of road, which might not seem like a lot, but if you saw the stretch of road, you'd be like, how has anybody ever had an accident on this stretch of road? It's it's wide. It's a 2-lane with pull-offs. So basically almost like a 4-lane, not quite, but like for sure a 3-lane. It's completely flat. There's no crossroads. So it's not like you got somebody just coming from your right or left and then having a major impact because they didn't stop at a stop sign. And almost all of the 30 accidents happened right by the bridge, and 15 of those 30 accidents are fatal. To me, those numbers are astronomical. I don't understand how that happens. And they discussed it, right? And then they went and they did some experiments at the bridge, and they got some really weird results. They drove over the bridge, and the tri-field meter went from a solid 1.2 baseline to an 11.6 when they went over the bridge. And this is the middle of nowhere, Colorado. I mean, nowhere. The ranch that's there is 1,600 acres, and that's a small ranch. The other ranches that are there are between 4,000 and 6,000 acres. So what's happening there? Why is that stretch of road? I mean, is it the Purgatory River? Does that have something to do with it? I don't know, right? Is it the name Purgatory? Is it a coincidence? Certainly not. I don't believe in coincidences.
I think that's definitely a coincidence.
I just think it's highly strange that you've got 30 accidents that are really severe, like really bad accidents, and 15 fatalities. Just seems ungodly high for a stretch of road that is completely flat and open. It just seems extremely high.
People are stupid.
I mean, unless everybody's, drunk driving in that area or something along those lines, and they're doing
Colorado.
90 miles an hour, and a deer or an elk or whatever is walking across the road at 2:00 in the morning, and you try to avoid it, and you have a major accident while you're speeding and you're intoxicated, I guess that could explain some of it. Does it explain that half of the accidents there were fatal? I don't think so. And I don't think that I don't know that there's an answer as to why in the hell there's a electromagnetic field going over the bridge that is 11.6 when your baseline is 1.2. It's the same thing that we were talking about when we went over the Stillwater Bridge, right? We go over one side and there's nothing there. We get nothing. And we turn around and we go over the other side, and the K2 is pegged. We didn't have a tri-field meter with us, so we can't determine what the exact numbers were. But we had the K2 out and had the K2 with us on and went over, and the thing pegged. Why? Why is that? Why is there an electromagnetic field in that one little tiny particular spot on the Stillwater Bridge in Minnesota?
So I do think some context is needed as to why we were going over a bridge with equipment out.
Well, sure. Because you said we needed to, because you said somebody else went over there and did it, and it was like, we need to go check it out for ourselves.
Not quite.
Well, that's what I remember.
Well, so basically, for those of you who do or do not remember Hellier, and you shouldn't, but just in case
I don't know.
do,
When Michael visited him, I thought that was phenomenal.
I like that section of the show, but either way,
it was reckless at times, for certain.
We're not here to talk about Hellier. It's just the foundation for what we were doing. Their research or whatever, their conspiracy theory led them to Stillwater, Minnesota, which is where I graduated high school. So I know that area very, very well.
Yeah. 10 minutes from where I am right now.
Yeah. They went to the lift bridge. I think
he did.
Not
the whole team. The guy who spoke to Tyler went. Right.
Well, it wasn't even the guy who spoke to. Well, maybe
it was Tyler.
But it was even before that.
It was before that, right? But it was him who went.
Right. So that's completely unimportant. So, who went is unimportant. The thing was that the reason they went there is because over the Spirit Box they got Stillwater Bridge, and what they didn't know, because they went to the Stillwater Lift Bridge, but what they didn't know was that the new Stillwater Bridge, was only like 3 months being completed when they got that out of the Spirit Box. Well, right. A friend of mine, Angela, who has abilities, and she used to live in Minnesota. She now lives in Utah. But
she lived by Skinwalker Ranch?
I doubt it.
Oh.
But she, before she moved, she was like, I want to go over the bridge. I want to go over the new bridge at least once. And she got this hugely heavy, like dark, evil type feeling as she went over the bridge. And so you and I decided that since we were in that area, that we would bring out the equipment and see if there was anything to it.
Right.
And we went over going east we had a millimeter out. We had like 2 K2s, I think, going just all over the dashboard.
It was kind of just spread out on the dash.
Yeah. It looked like a junk pile of equipment, but we went over the east side and there was nothing happened,
right.
period.
Nothing. Right.
So we went to the next exit, turned around and came back the other way. Well, we got onto the west side and all of a sudden the K2 started
It was
started
spiky.
blinking.
Yep.
I do believe, because we had the millimeter, we did measure it, and it did, that jumped as well. I can't remember what the numbers were.
I don't either.
But yeah, so there is some sort of energy on one side of that bridge as opposed to nothing on the other side, which is crazy. So anyway, that's what we were talking about there. What is it? I have no idea. But
It's interesting that something's there, though.
I agree.
Right. And so same thing on the Purgatory River then. So why are you getting 11.6 spike with a 1.2 baseline on a 1/10 of a mile stretch of road? That is I'm right, and I don't know either, but what I'm saying is it deserves more investigation. And if you have the financial ability and the permission, and there's a lot that goes into it, obviously. It's not just show up and just go do whatever the hell you want to do and try and find an answer most of the time. So, it's interesting, but regretfully for us common people, we have to rely on watching other people who have the ability to get permission and have the finances to put together some type of investigation to go do it. Which sucks, because I'd rather be there myself.
Right. Well, of course, we all would. But
well, not everybody, but we would.
Well, I meant we all, as in paranormal investigators.
Right.
So I'm glad we talked about Stillwater, because then that brings us into the Midwest.
It does bring us into the Midwest.
And shockingly, Wisconsin has a lot.
It does have a lot.
A lot of haunted roads. And I mean, because we have the Beast of Bray Road,
which is a great location.
Which is a very great location.
I mean, there's a lot of great evidence that has been documented of weird shit happening in that area. So,
Stevens Point, which is kind of right in the middle of the state, has 2, Bloody Bride Bridge and the Boy Scout Lane.
Boy Scout Lane, yep.
But the thing about that is, and that's Highway 66 bridge, known as Bloody Bride Bridge. Obviously, a bride was killed in an accident on the way to her wedding. Now she haunts drivers passing by at night. But what I find interesting about the Boy Scout Lane one is there was no accident. It's just a troop of Boy Scouts disappeared.
Yeah. And did they really disappear?
Well, right. Because there's no proof that this happened.
No proof that it happened. Right.
The isolated dead end road, does make for an eerie setting. So, I mean, I'm thinking that both of those are probably just folklore and have.
I agree with you. I think it's folklore.
So here's what the next one I want to read verbatim, because I just think the way that it's written is amazing. And it's Awassa Street.
Oh, sure. In Appleton.
Which is in Appleton. So here's what I read. And the last sentence is what absolutely kills me. Riverside Cemetery, located on North Owasso Street in Appleton, Wisconsin, is known for paranormal experiences. Some claim to have seen ghosts of past mourners dressed in old-fashioned clothing there. That's a first. I've never heard of the mourners showing up as...
That would be residual, obviously.
Probably. In the cemetery, visitors will find the tombstone of Kate Blood. Love that name.
That's a great name. Yeah.
Another supposedly haunted spot. Although many stories of her life and death are unfounded, some say she was a witch who killed her husband and children with an axe, or maybe it was Kate who was murdered by her husband.
Flip a coin.
Yeah.
Have the kid on the bridge bring it back to you.
But so this is what I love. Historians, however, have a completely different explanation altogether. She probably died of tuberculosis.
So if you see her walking with an axe, be like, hey, what are you doing with that axe? You died of tuberculosis.
You probably died of tuberculosis. It amazes me.
I wonder. I agree with you, because I'm looking at the same thing that you're reading on Travel and Leisure. So here's my thought, right? If, let's just say, and I wouldn't do this because it's just unethical, but let's just say that you and I decided that we were going to do something where we took a stretch of road and made up this phenomenal story that would make people pause and be like, really? Like, did you, like, you guys really experienced that there? And we just stuck with it, man. Just stuck with the story and put together, you know, not proof, but fake proof, right?
Well,
just shit, right?
Well,
Shit to get people, just shit to get social media interested in what the hell we were talking about.
Well, all we have to do is take a photo with an orb in it,
right there you go.
on the
That
road,
would start,
and it's
right.
like
that would
this-
certainly start.
That
would start the process.
This is the demon of Landon Avenue.
Right. There you go. So my question is, if we did something like that, and if there was enough thought process behind it, and we all know that it's just fake, like we started it and it's just fake, right? We're just doing it to see if people will join in. Do you think that
Yes.
potentially okay, so there's thousands and thousands of people are like, holy crap, and they're all focused on this stretch of road and this story, and it's completely 100% bullshit, but they don't know that, right? Because we're showing visual proof and we're talking about it, and we're like, holy shit, the other night I was there and I experienced this and I experienced that, and you know, we have some credibility behind us. Do you think that they're, you know, the manifestation that all of a sudden that becomes a legitimate haunted site?
Yep.
And I think that's what might have happened at Boy Scout Road.
I don't know about Boy Scout Road because nobody really seems to.
Well, it's all private land now. So number one, you can't investigate anymore. Because everything around it, everything except for the road is privately owned now. So it's completely off the charts as far as we're concerned, because I won't trespass. You know, if it was public land or county land or something like that, I would go check it out. But it's not. It's all privately owned now. So I'm not going to trespass on somebody's property for anything like that. And the stories are, there's like 4 or 5 stories. Oh, somebody dropped a lantern and burned everybody to death. Well, if that was the case, there'd be documentation.
Mhm.
The troop leader lost his mind and slaughtered the Boy Scouts. Okay, that also, once again, you go to the police station, there would be a guy who was arrested who slaughtered a bunch of Boy Scouts. You know, there's a group of the Boy Scouts who left, walked into the woods and disappeared. Now that, to me, could be potentially could have happened. They could, you know, a bunch of 8, 9-year-old, 10-year-old boys are getting brave behind a leader, right? An alpha male, a young alpha male, encourages these other non-alpha males to join him, and 4 or 5 of them go exploring in the middle of the night and walk into the woods, and something happens. Could that have happened? It'd be more likely that happened than the kid dropping the lantern and burning everybody to death, or the scout leader murdering everybody and not having documentation of it.
So 2 things on that one. One, you would then have missing persons reports.
You would
from these
if
troops.
it was reported.
You think a troop of Boy Scouts and all their parents are just going to be like, oh, well, tough shit for them.
I'm not saying it was or it wasn't. What I'm saying is there's a process, so it would have to be reported.
Right. That's what I'm saying. So
Right.
there would be reports.
There would be a report of missing persons,
of missing children.
Right.
And second, if that was the case, they're obviously not going to get their navigation badge.
And they certainly are not.
So,
but hopefully they weren't carrying a lantern and dropped it and burned everybody to death.
Well, they're not going to get their fire badge either.
They're not getting shit.
So,
right. They're not even going to be a Boy Scout after that.
Double negative for them.
Yeah, exactly.
No badge and no life.
Right. So so could a place like that take on its own history?
Yes.
Its own story. And I think it could.
Because it would become a tulpa.
Right. Which I don't believe in. But it's not a tulpa.
It would be a tulpa because it'd be a thought form.
No.
It would be a collective thought process creating something out of nothing.
So then is it a physical manifestation or is it just a thought process? Because if it's not a physical manifestation, then if somebody witnesses something physically, visually witnesses a physical manifestation, then it would have to be something would have to be there in order for them to witness the physical manifestation. If it's just a thought process, then you and I would go there and we would have absolutely there'd be nothing to the location. Because we are not privy to that. We didn't create it. It's not going to affect us.
Well, that depends on
what?
Who. Well, I mean, if you're only thinking that the thought form being the emphasized word there,
right,
can only appear based on who is right in front of it, then yeah, because you and I would both know that it doesn't exist.
Right.
But if you have 100,000 people, let's say, our story goes viral,
right,
and you have 100,000 people pooling their collective thought process into there, then they are manifesting it. We aren't. So I mean, we
would witness it though, because it's not our topa. We didn't. You know what I get? You see where I'm going or no? Because a topa is a personal manifestation. It's a personal thought form. It's not a group thought form.
A topa can be a group thought form.
But it's not in what we talked about last week. It's a personal manifestation of an individual.
No, we talked about collective thought processes.
Well, collective thought process is reaching out to other individuals and other entities and potentially alien life forms.
Yeah, you and I have different definitions of collective thought processes.
Okay. Because I don't see a manifestation. Do I think you can create a haunting at a location? And we've talked about this before. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Can you go to a location that is not haunted, tell everybody it's haunted as hell, get a whole bunch of people come in there, scare the shit out of them, have them tell stories about it, and then create more and more and more and create this waterfall of energy at that one particular spot, and then something actually manifest at that location? Yes, I totally believe that. I totally think that's possible.
I think that's what happened at the Sally house.
I'm interested by the Sally house. I don't know why there would be a negative entity at the Sally house. That's what interests me. Like when Dustin was telling us, I've never been there, but when Dustin was there, he said, walk through the whole place. Everything felt fine. Nothing was bad. Went down to the basement, stopped by the black spot on the floor in the basement floor, and everything went to shit. Everything went bad. Now, there's something there, whether it was there from the house, from something that happened at the house, or whether it's a manifestation of all the thought process that's going into the Sally house. I don't know. Right? But whatever is there now certainly has energy and certainly has the ability to affect individuals. But I wouldn't call that a topa.
I never said that. That was a topa. But I'm just saying that I think that to your point of, can people just buy a building and turn it into a haunted location?
Sure.
Absolutely.
It takes time, but can you do it? Sure.
Absolutely. And now that we've gotten completely off of highways, our show's over.
That's okay. We ended with a different thought process. I'm okay with that.
All right. Well, we are out of time. So
the only thing we didn't hit that I wanted to hit was Highway 666.
Yeah, I know.
Which somewhere down the road we'll hit it. Like we'll start the episode of haunted worldwide highways. We'll start with 666. And then we'll digress into Highway 4.
Right.
In Sanford, Florida.
Right. That sounds fine with me.
Okay.
So that does it for us this week. We'll be back next week with another brand new episode. So until then, stay healthy, stay safe.
Michael's right.
And we will we will see you next week.